Present times in future, that's what we're discussing tonight. Use the hashtag Citizen Business or text us on 22422. But first, let me introduce you to my panelists. Right next to me, we have Heril Bangera. He's the founder and CEO of Flame Tree Group. And seated across from me, we have Dr. Paul Kibicho, finance and business consultant. Both of them are involved and run family businesses, so they'll give us a lot of insight. Dr. Kibicho, let me start with you. How best do you define a family business?
Thank you very much. A family business is basically a business that is being run by a group of family members with a very large shareholding, meaning about 90 to 97% of that particular business is being run by the family members, the immediate family members, or maybe extended family members to a certain extent. So it is a business that we can talk in terms of what we call partnership or a limited company that has got people from outside. It's a business that is solely run by a group of family members.
And what is the place for you of family businesses in present times? How viable are they?
Well, it all depends. All businesses depend on a number of issues. Number one, if this particular business is being run, it's a family business, but we've been able to incorporate what we call professionalism, where people with what we call expertise normally come and, of course, help you run the business. That can be called a very well-established business. But where a business is being run by a family person by virtue of having been the one who started, it has got so many risk elements that may bring it down within a very short period of time.
All right.
So one of the things that we must ensure is that it may be a family business, but you have what we call the right people running that particular business venture.
Okay, so coming to that, Heril, tell us a little bit about your own story with Flame Tree and how you decided to involve your family members or family member. 25 years, you were telling me earlier. Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Janet. Yeah, as I've told you earlier, I started my business about 25 years ago, and with the intention of growing the business and eventually moving it and making sure that the business lives much longer than I do. Initially, as everybody, as an entrepreneur or as a family starts a business, you think of the near future, that you just want to make the business as profitable as possible. But eventually, as you're growing the business, you've got to get more people, because nothing can be done with you individually. So you've got to create a structure so that the business can carry on. So as we've grown our businesses, the first businesses was water tanks in the business of Roto. Then we moved on to cosmetics, where we did Zoe, and eventually have a number of businesses under our Flame Tree Group. Today, about 12 businesses. Now, each one of these businesses work independently. And so the independence has created now the ability for our structure where it can now work or live longer. And adding to that, what we did is we even listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. So we have more than one of the founding members. We have a number of shareholders. We also have a board of directors that helps the governance. Now, this structure, I believe, helps us move a family business or a business into the next level.
And who is we when you say we?
Any entrepreneur.
No, but in your case, it's yourself and your wife?
I am the main shareholder of the business. My wife has been an integral part of the business from the very beginning. She has had inputs in it. But the idea is to make sure that the business lives beyond us and has every business has its goals, and we want to see those goals that are achieved. And it's not our individual aspirations alone that we should think of, because the business is more than that.
Okay. Before I go into the next phase, which is the do's and don'ts, yourself, Dr. Kibicho, you told me earlier you also run a few family businesses. And when you say we, again, is it yourself, your wife, your siblings? Who exactly is behind these businesses?
Of course, wife and my daughter, who is, of course, above 18 years of age.
All right.
Of course, I happen to be the chairman. I'm a vice chair by virtue of my wife being my deputy chair. Of course, I have a daughter who is a director as well.
Okay, so both of you are running businesses with your spouses, with your family. Take us through the advantages and disadvantages, the do's and the don'ts. Maybe I could start with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, based on your experience.
Okay, an ordinary person or an ordinary motor would think that he takes the profit to his house entirely 100%. But that's what we call a pedestrian view. But from a professional point of view, okay, it has some advantages. Number one, you have the control of that particular business. Number two, you know how the business is doing. Number three, you take home of all the profits in the event you make, because not necessarily all the time. Of course, number four, you have what we refer to as, you have the entire structure within your control. But then, any business, like me now, of course, in our business enterprises or ventures, what I'm doing at the moment is creating a business which is called a going-on concern. A going-on concern business means you are creating a business that will attract more investors to come in. That the moment you say like what he has done, listing Nairobi Securities Exchange, the moment you say that you are floating the shares out there, people come and buy. So it has so many advantages. If the business is professional land, becomes a going-on concern, other interested parties will come in and of course give you the much needed money, and of course they start now having what you call the controlling share, meaning that the risk has already been spread. But one of the key disadvantages of running a family business, if you are the person controlling that particular business, in the event of something happening to you, the business comes crumbling down. Number two, it creates a space for family members to create what we refer to as disharmony. The family members may think that you being the share of this particular business, you are taking a lot of money home, and they may look for a way of actually terminating you by giving what we call a premature call to the next world. It can happen.
A call to the next world.
Yes, of course.
That's the most diplomatic way I've ever heard it being said.
So that's another disadvantage.
Of course, a very big one,
a very big one. Number three, in the event of losses, you don't have anyone to share with. You share the losses with your family members, meaning that if you're not very careful, it can actually crumble within a very short period of time. Those are things that you need to
I'll come to Heril as well, and as we run footage of something that we also play out when it came to Tuskies, we saw them, kicking out their CEO. It played out very dramatically in front of the cameras. I think we're going to be playing that clip in just a few moments. There we have it. So that was, I think that again brought to the fore what people really see as sort of like the cliche when it comes to running a family business, what you talked about, disharmony. In your cases, you probably have it, you seem to have it very well figured out. How would you then advise someone who is planning on going into a business with their family, but they're concerned about this disharmony or infighting? From your own experience, because you do have a member of your family, what would you want to tell them in terms of just allaying their fears when it comes to going into a business, feeling like they're going to already create disharmony?
I think for me, whether it's a family business or it's an entrepreneurial business, they're basically a business is divided into three pillars. There's the shareholders, whether be it the entrepreneurs or the family members, and then there's the managers, and there's the business itself. Now these three pillars are totally independent of each other. The shareholders have the responsibility to hire the management, to make sure there's the right board, that makes sure runs the business, that makes sure increase the shareholder value, and also achieves the goals of the business. Now if you can separate the three pillars in yourself or within the family, then you don't have some of these wrangles. If one generation passes on, the second generation just becomes shareholders and thereby appoints managers to make sure that they run their business well. It doesn't entitle them to become managers, and that's the responsibility. And while running a business, many people don't distinguish, divide the roles between them and the business. They think the business is them, they think the management is them, and the shareholder is them. So in your mind, when you start a business, if you can distinguish those three pillars, I feel it's very important that it dissolves most of the conflicts that you have.
Do you have anything to add to that?
One of the things that you must ensure that you do is that you must create structures within a business organization. And by creating structures, I mean here, from the word go, let the family members know that this is what we refer to as, this is your conveying, this is what you're supposed to do, these are your laws, specific laws. Again, it's also prudent to ensure that you come up with what you call a strategic plan. Up to what point in time do you want us to run this business as a family business? And then after that, once we exit it from what we call family business to what we call a corporate organization, how many shares do you think we shall float out there? And then what will be the terms of those people coming on board? Again, the system of administration. Or we refer to, he talks of board of governors. These people are very key and they are very critical. Board of governors or directors do not necessarily have to be shareholders of that particular company. They may be people with what we call expertise, but they have what we call a fiduciary duty to actually safeguard the interests of this particular organization. But if you want to become a bit high-tech, or even to play business in another level now, from what you call an ordinary level, what you do is that you make sure that the people you bring on board they also own that particular organization to a certain extent.
Okay.
So they will be having what we call the interest of the organization at heart. And then when it comes to issues of sharing what we call the profits, there must be what we call clear-cut policy on how to share what we call profits. That one now creates what we call an environment that is conducive for running that particular business.
So these should be in place way before you begin to roll out,
precisely.
as opposed to getting in there then trying to figure it out.
Yes, at least you should have that direction from the day you start.
Especially the strategic plan. Based on the report that PwC released, one of the things that they mentioned was that the average lifespan of family businesses is just 3 generations. Do you hold the same view? Does this also mean that family businesses, we may be seeing less of them in future? What are your thoughts on that? Maybe we could start with you.
Okay, I don't know about whether family businesses are going to be less. I believe every business, a lot of them start as family businesses. But for me as myself, what I've seen as for Flametree Group, I've seen that what businesses we've seen emerge in the West or in Asia, the wealth has been created over 100 years, some of them over 150 years and longer. So if we in Kenya are going to create these businesses that are going to become global or become companies that we are proud of, we've got to make sure that it succeeds beyond 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations. So we've got to create these companies. So for us as Flametree, I believe we've started looking at that as a direction. So I believe family businesses can start and can move to those directions.
Before I get your response, let's talk about something that's obvious. A lot of people say, whether it's in Asia, it's in India, the family businesses seem to thrive or are much stronger there. Is there also a cultural issue or a value system that comes into play? And again, Dr. Kibicho, you can also add to this, that makes them more successful in certain cultures, in certain countries, as opposed to others. What are your thoughts on that before I hear from you?
I think my personal thoughts on that is family businesses are great when starting off, but eventually have a lot of problems if the structures are not put in place. So the founders or the initial family members need to be very clear and distinct on the responsibilities for each family members, and not bring family issues into the business and not mix the two. Like I said, the pillars that I talked about.
Yeah. Okay, so why do they seem to thrive in various countries or cultures as opposed to others?
Okay. One of the things that you must appreciate is that we have what we call very falling cultures. If, for instance, talk of an Asian business, it goes for generations. I know somebody who has been in that business. The father died, the grandfather died. The business is still running. We have some people. Number one, it all depends on what we call the level of trustworthiness. Some people trust, some cultures trust their family members so much, they have nothing to hide. But this element of somebody taking it all for himself, and of course earning the glory, that you want to have the name, that you're the owner, you're the person behind this particular idea, it brings in some element of what we call discontent among the family members. And one of the things that they do is to ensure, believe you me, they'll give you what we call a PhD, which means this time not my PhD, pulling him or her down.
Pulling him or her down.
To ensure that the business doesn't thrive because they're taking the entire glory. So one of the things that makes those businesses grow is actually by virtue of what we call historical culture values that they have. Asians, they do very well in their business. Number one, they inculcate what we call the business values to their children at a tender age. Look at some cultures here in Kenya. They don't even know what their father does, what their mother does. Or when they ask something, what do you do, daddy? But in some cultures, some people don't even take their children to boarding schools. Before they go home, they are normally inducted through the business. We do A, B, C, D. That's a very, very important culture. And that one tells you this is what we call perpetuation of business. That even if I'm not in the scene, people know what has been done in the past and what ought to be done. I'm telling you, they even know how to keep records. But go to some businesses that you see, big as they are, they have no records. Even when it comes to issues of KRA, they have to struggle because they have got no point of reference. So it all depends on how a family, if you still have some Kikuyus who know how to run businesses. I give an example of Kikuyus because those people, they learn from what we call those who have done it well, and they have been able to borrow a reef from them, and therefore through that particular extension of borrowing a reef, they have been able to bring it to the family members, and they copy from that. But others, they do it in their own style, meaning that they are the Alpha and Omega. That should something terribly happen to them,
that's a wrap. We're pretty much running out of time. So your thoughts on the future of family businesses? We're seeing a lot of disruption, whether it's technology, maybe a sense that right now people in families almost want to go at it alone. So that same element of trust and values and unity and trying to grow this business and take it to the next generation, You find maybe more people want to go into different sectors that don't have to do with the family business. They don't see the need for it. What are your thoughts on the future of family businesses in Kenya?
Personally, I would say this. As he said, he really put it so well that most of the businesses, I can even give you a case in the US called General Electric, which has survived so many decades. Why? Because these people had proper structures. One of the things that you must do in any business is to ensure that you know where you're going from here. Now, bring on board what we call professionalism. Again, believe in consultation. The problem with us people is that we treat our own problems and we assume that we know. And many people don't believe in consultation. Go to a consultant, talk to him, and then bring in what we call a department called research and development, because it keeps you on the toes. The world is changing, so dynamic. Now we are talking of during the olden days, we used to wait for the news to be brought to us at either 1 p.m. or maybe at 9. But nowadays, I'm getting report instantly, even before you report here. I already know that an air clash, there was an air clash, leaving 76 people dead. Likewise, in business, you must be having what we call the entrepreneurial eye. Do not be a businessman. Business people, when they go to Mumias, they take only sugar. But an entrepreneur takes the sugar and the molasses. So you must see, anybody who produces what we call flour, uga flour, for that matter, he also comes up with what we refer to as animal feeds, because you look at what we call the advantages that you can be able to get out of this particular business. And how do you do that? You require to have what we call people with entrepreneurial skills, and do not avoid paying. And don't pay peanuts. Pay peanuts, employ monkeys. Pay well, employ brains. And again, bring experts in your business for its continuity.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kirucha. Heril, your final word.
Yeah, I would say that be it a family business or an entrepreneurial business, it's important to realize what the most important thing of the business is. It's doing the business itself. So focusing on your customer and more importantly, your employees. If your employees, for example, in our business, what has really built the business? It's the employees, and they own the business. It's their business. Now, if you focus on family and think that family is the business, is everything, then I think you lose the mission for the business, and everything then starts having the conflicts that you're talking about.
All right. Thank you both so much for your insight. Great insight, I think, for a lot of people. Heril Bangera, the founder and CEO of Flame Tree Group, and Dr. Paul Kibicho, finance and business consultant. We'll be right back after this break on Citizen Business Center.